and welcome back to Visceral Reactions, your regular stop for irregular amounts of horror. And you know what we say here, the more of the horror, the more we won't need eyes. I'm Matthew Jimenez.
Fuck this ship.
There we go.
I'm Quinton Williams. I'll give you another quote at the end.
When Ridley Scott made Alien, one of the many fears the film tapped into was captured perfectly in the tagline that in space, no one can hear you scream.
That's a good tagline.
Yeah, probably the best one. The terror doesn't rely on a xenomorph hiding in the air ducts. It's that you're alone in the vastness of space. Help isn't on the way, and your existence will be snuffed out without anyone ever finding the remains. You will freeze or starve or suffocate, or maybe even claw your own eyes out in a cosmic vacuum. And no one, no thing will be there to see it. This is what gives the fear in John Carpenter's The Thing and Paul W.S. Anderson's Event Horizon such tremendous force. Isolation and paranoia. Being face to face with the unknown, or worse, yourself, with nowhere to go. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote that hell is other people, but what these two sci-fi horror classics demonstrate is that you don't have to travel outside of yourself if hell is what you're looking for. As we have done with numerous movies for the season so far, we're going to talk about the Cold War to open things up. Now, the thing about the Cold War during the time that The Thing comes out in 1982 is that the Cold War is not that cold. Two of the many reasons why the Cold War escalates into being a little hot is because of two elections that happen, both of them being before The Thing comes out. Margaret Thatcher is elected to Prime Minister in 1979.
The Iron Lady.
And Ronald Reagan, our favorite, is elected in 80, becomes president in 81.
Right.
Because of these two absolute anti-socialist hardos being elected, the kind of cooling down that had happened after we had left Vietnam, in full in 1975 is because of these two. So things start to heat back up, and we get to a point where most of the world today, even then, did not realize how close we came again to total annihilation. This is something that both of these films are dealing with. There's a lot happening right before The Thing comes out. And some of them are obvious. The Soviet Union invading Afghanistan the same year that Margaret Thatcher is elected. The trading of Olympic boycotts that we have with the Soviet Union.
Reagan's insane war on drugs.
Yeah. So both before and after The Thing's release, we vow not to participate in the Moscow Olympics in 1980 because the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan the year before. And because we boycotted those Olympics, the Soviet Union decided to boycott the Los Angeles Olympics in 1984.
You'll not go to Moscow, Moscow not go to you.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if they're still bitter for the next Olympics happening whenever it is in LA. That Putin will be like, I do not forget.
Yeah.
We not go.
We have these moments of very petty aggression.
The whole Cold War is petty. What are you talking about?
Well, it would be petty if people didn't die.
That's true.
But we have a countless amount of people who are being killed for one reason or another. But then we also have things like there are numerous missile deployments happening throughout Western Europe in between 83 and 85. We have both the Soviet Union targeting Western Europe. We have missiles in Western Germany and West Berlin.
Oh, right.
Facing the Soviet Union. It's very much a moment like what led to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But because this is happening during the 80s, it's been kind of forgotten. But what's crazy is that with the exception of the Cuban Missile Crisis, this is the moment more than any other in human history that we almost came to complete nuclear destruction.
And even I didn't know about that because everyone knows about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. And so what happened, thanks in part to Ronald Reagan.
Thanks, Reagan.
So on March 8th, 1983, we get this wonderful speech in which Reagan calls the Soviet Union an evil empire. And his administration starts to develop, literally like 2 weeks after this speech, the Strategic Defense Initiative, which everyone called Star Wars.
Oh, right.
The Star Wars program.
Because he wanted to make like
so the
Death Star or something.
Well, this is the beginning of the program in which if the Soviet Union fired any intercontinental ballistic missiles at us,
right,
we would have these space rockets blowing them out of the sky. Essentially what like Israel has now with the Iron Dome, but just like on like a much larger scale. And in that same speech, he called the Soviet Union the focus of evil in the modern world.
I don't know about that.
So anyone who hears that, let alone a country that has the temperament of the Soviet Union at this time, you're not going to be happy.
Gorbachev, not happy.
So Gorbachev comes in a few years.
Oh, he's not
later. He's actually the reason why the Cold War de-escalates.
Yes,
but that's not until 1985,
right?
That he comes in. Now this is the moment. This is what all of this is building to. There's this military exercise called Able Archer 83. And it starts on November 2nd of 1983. And it's this NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, exercise where we are simulating, like the U.S. military is simulating what to do during a nuclear attack. And they're doing this in Western Europe because the headquarters for this is in Belgium. Now, it involves actual like mobilization of troops, of missiles. It looks like the beginning of a war. Now, the thing is that the Soviet Union doesn't know that this is an exercise. And so whatever intel that they have is saying that we are mobilizing troops and gear.
Good job.
To invade. To start firing. And so the Soviet Union gets all of their missiles and they start prepping them. and they're just waiting. And they're just like, sitting. They're sitting on this. Like their finger is literally on the button. And for whatever, by the grace of whatever God there is, no one does anything. But this is the other moment. And it was, to make it even better, it wasn't until after, like not even like the day after, but like weeks after.
Oh, God.
That they knew that it wasn't a real thing. And it wasn't until after that that we knew that they didn't know. So
the Soviet Union were freaking out. We didn't know jack.
They're shitting their pants. They're like, okay, this is it. Also, now the reason why Star Wars, not the movie, but the program is so important is because that took away mutually assured destruction. Because the whole point of that is that if you fuck with me, you're also going to get fucked.
Yeah.
But Star Wars took away the also going to get fucked part. Which meant that we could attack without any sort of retaliation. Now, all of this is important because in the year that Reagan is elected president and begins this shit show of Cold War politics, on August 1st of 1981, this very, very crucial moment in human history happened, and that was the Buggles debuting their video on MTV. The very first video. Video killed the radio star. Exactly. I'm sure anyone would think like, what do these things have to do with each other? Like why does MTV
and Cold War conflicts?
Yes. Why are they important? Because MTV said it was important. Because you literally couldn't go an hour on MTV without seeing a music video one of the video jockeys talking about politics.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
So it's, because MTV's trying to be cutting edge. I mean, they are cutting edge. They're branching out into a medium that no one had any faith in or any real desire to go in. And they were just like, fuck it, we're going to do this. It's funny that with the exception of like sexual imagery, Cold War imagery is the thing that pops up second.
In MTV.
In all of these music videos in the early 80s. And we're not even talking like just a song about whatever deciding to have a music video being playfully political or anything. We're talking like the lyrics and the video.
There's one song and video that comes to my mind instantly. And I think it's the same one you're thinking of.
Is it? Maybe.
99 Red Balloons?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Was not thinking that. So I went through it to see like, okay, like who's doing this? And it's not like, we're not talking chumps here. Like, okay, there's Men at Work. Fine. There's Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Who even knows them anymore? But then there's like Genesis and Sting. And then there's Morrissey and Prince and David Bowie.
And also 99 Red Balloons.
And there you go. 99 Red Balloons. And so,
which was, I think, about the Berlin Wall.
I'm going to trust you on this one because I have no idea.
You don't know anything about the 80s.
Yeah, well, nothing about the balloons. And
Pop culture 80s you know nothing about. I forgot.
So
David Bowie had like a whole album about the Berlin Wall. Heroes is about the Berlin Wall.
Well, he has the entire Berlin trilogy.
Yeah.
So, but one of his music videos, you can't get more explicit than this. There's like an image of like Aborigines in Australia, and in like the background, you just see the mushroom cloud.
Oh God.
Of a nuclear bomb, and like very far away. We're destroying ourselves, right? That was kind of like an unintentional segue into the destruction, the self-destruction. All of this is to describe the atmosphere in which the thing is being released.
Yes.
Which will make perfect sense as to why the movie didn't succeed.
Yeah.
So
for a film filled with nihilism, paranoia, I'm shocked that the audience didn't love the movie. And people hated it. It's a remake to The Thing from Another World. It came out in the 50s during the height of the Cold War. So they're both Cold War movies still talking about the same thing.
It has the added effect of coming out during a time where the country is really not confident in anything. Right. And to such an extent that probably Jimmy Carter's most famous speech is called the Crisis of Confidence speech. And in 1979, he had this very long, very elaborate, well thought out speech in which he kind of shifts the blame from the federal government in regard to the energy crisis that's happening, and he kind of puts it onto the American people. So this is we're talking decades before companies would start shifting environmentalism onto their own carelessness and onto straws, like that kind of thing.
Oh, right.
But this is more of, I think, for someone who is such a religious person, I think the thing that he's getting at in the speech is an actual like crisis of faith. And because he brings up things like, for the first time in like American history, whenever this kind of thing would be quantified, the majority of people are unsure about what the next 5 years are going to present for the country. So like people literally don't have an idea of what's happening.
That hasn't changed at all, hasn't it?
Exactly. And so you have that with the fact that like there are people who are lining up, what seems like miles, obviously, an exaggeration to some extent, but like not really, to get gas.
Oh, you're talking about the gas shortage.
Yeah. So you have that, then you have this realization that we are way too dependent on foreign oil.
Yep. Still.
And like that was a problem when Nixon was president, because like 73 is when OPEC decides to basically tell us to go fuck ourselves because they're going to start making less oil and selling us less oil. And so like all of this, is happening where it's like we have so few resources, like the need to recycle and become renewable, like as a society, is reaching a point where in the very location that this movie is set in Antarctica, just a couple of years after the movie comes out, there's a hole in the ozone layer.
Well, we gotta saran wrap it.
Like one of the most important discoveries in human history is this discovery of a giant tear in the ozone. And now prior to the thing coming out, like throughout the 70s, the scientific community and their bases in Antarctica, they started noticing these declines in ozone.
Uh-oh.
And then finally, in May of 85, there's a giant hole in the ozone layer. People start freaking out. And what's amazing is that like a couple of years later, there was actually like something that happened. Like people actually came together and said, okay, fine, we're going to change this, because very similar to, this is another one of the things that hasn't changed. People had to face the realization that if they continue to be wasteful, they would be in a very bad situation. And so, and that's...
With all that being said.
Yeah, and like all of that is to contextualize John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, this is a man who made Halloween.
Yep.
Just a few years prior.
This is arguably his first big budget film.
Yeah, and sadly, like one of the biggest flops.
Yeah, John Carpenter has a weird history of making really good films, but no one watching them.
Yeah.
He doesn't really... Halloween, you can consider his only big success. The other ones have gained a really good cult following, but when the time they came out, people just were not into them.
Yeah, they're not feeling him. He's definitely one that you can say is ahead of his time.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to apply that. The credits for The Thing are fascinating because it says right out, like, who's important in this movie.
Yeah, so...
and the first person, before you even know what the movie is called, you know that it's starring Kurt Russell.
He's the only person in the cast list.
He's the only one who's starring.
Yes.
Like everyone else gets...
There's like the end credits, right?
Yeah.
But like for the opening credits, it's just Kurt Russell.
It's Kurt Russell.
And that's it. There's a lot of people in this film.
Yeah. But Kurt Russell is the one who matters the most.
Yes.
And like not only is it obvious, I mean, it's also Kurt Russell. Mm-hmm. But by this point, this is the third time that John Carpenter and Kurt Russell have worked together. The first time was on Elvis, and then they did Escape from New York.
Yep.
And then after this, they're going to do Big Trouble in Little China, which is always fun. And then
Escape from L.A.
And then Escape from L.A. And so we have this established relationship between these two, which is great because...
Initially, Kurt Russell was considered, but he didn't want to cast him. He wanted to find someone else, but he ended up going with Kurt Russell because he knew Kurt could handle the conditions of the film, which are somewhat harsh conditions to film in.
Yeah, being in Canada and Alaska.
And in 28-degree refrigerated sets.
Yeah. Speaking of refrigerators, I thought about how funny it is that even in Antarctica, you need to have a freezer and a refrigerator.
You could just put it on the ground, put it in the ice.
Yeah, but then it would probably be too cold.
Oh, right.
It would probably be too cold. So we have this relationship. We have Kurt Russell, and the credits don't mention the original version of The Thing.
Who goes there?
Yeah. It mentions the novella
from
1938,
okay. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't say anything about The Thing from Another World.
They don't really outright say it's like a remake of The Thing from Another World, but that it's just another adaptation of Who Goes There. One
that's much closer to that original.
Surprisingly, despite, what The Thing looks like throughout the film.
Yeah. This idea of taking a classic 50s to call it a B sci-fi horror film, but I mean made by Howard Hawks, and one in which the aliens just straight up on the poster. There's no hiding what the alien looks like in that. And what's funny is that even for all of the moments in The Thing, that we see the alien, there's not as much time. Like, it's definitely like if you had to put it on a spectrum of, I don't know, something where you see the monster like all the time nonstop.
Right.
You just want it to go away.
It's the Jurassic Park thing where there's only 15 minutes of dinosaurs on screen.
Yeah.
There's surprisingly not a lot of alien thing on screen, even though it's prevalent.
Just like with the best monster movies where you almost never see it.
You see it. You see it in all of its icky, gooey glory.
Yeah. Just like a brief synopsis of the film.
Yeah, and the film does not like shy away what this is about, because right after the credits end, it cuts to space and an alien ship crashing onto Earth. Yeah. It is not... it's holding your hand throughout the film like, yep, it's about aliens.
Yeah. And fortunately, it doesn't say like 25,000 years ago or something like that.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, because like you're thinking like, oh, is this crashing now? And then when this Norwegian, or as Kurt Russell's character
Swedes.
McCready says that they're Swedes, they dig up in Antarctica this spaceship.
That's been in the ice for more than 100,000 years.
A lot of time. And it gets loose. Like whatever's frozen comes out.
I don't like, and the creepy thing is, we never know what it originally looked like.
We also don't know how many.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if the prequel goes into that. I didn't watch the prequel.
I'm going to say it doesn't count.
Okay. Give it to where prequel, just for a brief moment. Apparently the prequel's not that bad. Apparently, like, all the special effects they used were actual practical, but for some reason, whoever was making the film was like, no, make it CG. So all that time wasted.
Yeah, that's just bad.
Yeah.
But this Norwegian base in Antarctica has this alien
thing.
Yeah, just a thing. And it melts and gets loose and infects a dog. A couple of dogs, who knows? At least one dog. This dog eventually makes its way to an American base, and that's where all of the shit starts to...
Talking about Kurt Russell being front and center, that dog is the best actor in the film. That dog's awesome.
That dog, yeah, the dog's really cool. So these huskies, there's a bunch of huskies, I guess, in case the American base want to do like an Iditarod or something. They have a bunch of huskies, and then there's like a husky from the Norwegian base. And when they get the dog and they put him in the like kennel area, yeah, there's just this really cool moment of the dog just walking in and being surrounded.
Yeah.
And then just being growled at. And the dog just like stays cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dog splits open and this alien is there. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
Because you see it like growling and foaming at the mouth.
Yeah,
then just like
and
a
it just
flower
splits.
And the head comes off and it just... Oh, I know we're going to be talking about the special effects probably in a bit, but goddamn, those special effects are amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you take like a tenth of your budget practically.
And you give it to the guy with rubber and syrup.
And all these different chemicals. You have this alien that, you know, starts just wrecking all of these dogs. And as the team of... not even like scientists.
I don't know what they are. I don't really...
They don't do anything.
No, I can't... Because there's like 12 dudes on this base. I don't really know what most of them do.
Also, there are just a lot of weapons on there.
Yeah. Probably for polar bears. Probably.
There aren't any polar bears
in there. Antarctica?
No.
In case the Russians come, I don't know what this base is for.
We just know it's an information.
That's fine.
Information base. But... I mean, this is happening during this period where pretty much every country wants to have a research base there because nobody owns it.
No.
So it's free real estate. Like nobody can tell you that you can't.
No, there's no like president of Antarctica.
No, there's just a penguin.
An emperor penguin.
Yeah, it's just he's literally the emperor of the penguins.
What's he gonna do?
Yeah, nothing. He's a bird, you know. And so we get this cast of people like Keith David and
an unknown Walter Brimley.
Yeah, Walter Brimley. Like Cocoon hasn't even come out yet, so like he's not. You know, there's no diabetes.
He hasn't done his diabetes.
There's no diabetes yet.
He doesn't have his mustache.
And we have the slow and sometimes not slow. I mean, just like the Cold War, like there are moments where things heat up.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, this is terrifying. And then other moments where it's like, all right, there's an eerie calm. This is the best part of the movie.
Yeah, honestly, the slow bits, the quiet bits are the best parts. I mean, the alien bits are awesome, but watching these men just slowly turn on each other in this menagerie of paranoia and delusion, it's like an Agatha Christie whodunit, trying to figure out who's the thing. It's great.
It's by far like the thing that's strongest in this movie.
And the whole movie's strong.
Yeah. This is like the key. Like this is the feeling that you have throughout. It's the feeling that you have after the movie's done. It is the paranoia. And like, honestly, like whenever this kind of situation of we don't know who's the real whatever, you know, whether it's Reservoir Dogs and it's like, we don't know who the cop is, but we know there's a cop, you know, or here, like we know there's an alien disguised as a person, but we don't know who. The thing that I automatically go to is one of the best episodes of The Twilight Zone.
Yes, it's the one where it's the subdivision, right?
Yeah, the monsters are due on Maple Street.
Yep.
This is from the first season of the show, so it came out in 1960. And like, this is an episode of television, not even like, this is a piece of writing that is so good. I shit you not, in 8th grade.
Yeah.
We read it.
Yes,
in
I
a
did too.
Textbook.
Yes, I did too.
Like,
and I loved it.
It's that essential to be studied. That's partly because it doesn't go away. Like
it's that same like witch trial as Salem McCarthyism. Like, who's a communist?
Exactly.
Who's an alien? Who's the thing?
It's all the same. Not even out of the Cold War, the movie is still dealing with the legacy of the House of Un-American Activities Committee and McCarthyism. And so we have these communist witch hunts that don't really go away.
No, not in the sense of Hollywood, but like maybe in corporate settings or judicial federal settings, it's still very much prevalent.
And so we have it play out quite literally of someone is a threat, but we all look the same.
Yeah.
This is why it is so perfect to have a shapeshifter as the threat.
Yeah.
Because what's more terrifying than not being able to identify? Like there's one thing, you know, of being afraid with the dark. It's okay. Like you don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
But with something that shapeshifts, with something, or when the threat looks like you, the terror is that it could be you. And this is demonstrated in the blood test. Which is such a great scene. I mean, it's like watching someone play Russian roulette. Like it has that like high stake tension like built into it. You know, after some tests are done and these men realize that their blood, that the blood of the thing reacts to fire in a certain way.
It's one organism, more or less. It's like almost a colony of tiny microscopic organisms.
Exactly. You know, there's the idea of if everyone gives a blood sample and you take a
hot wire, and you poke it, it'll react.
In theory.
Yes.
And that's what everyone's hoping is that, and also not hoping, because one of the brilliant things about the movie is that even when you think that someone is
the thing,
they're not. Yeah. You know, and this is something that comes up that we see coming up, you know, a couple of decades later in The Hateful Eight, Tarantino's Hateful Eight. It's the same exact situation of like, okay, everyone's trapped in a room. You know, it's like the ultimate game of Clue. Yeah. Except no one has any idea.
Yeah, like I said, it's an Agatha Christie whodunit.
And so like you're just like, all right, who's this alien? And everyone is shitting themselves because regardless of whether they are the alien or not, no one wants to be near the alien.
Yes.
So it's like there's the fear of like, what happens when the thing is uncovered? Because every time it appears, someone dies.
Yeah.
At one point, Gary is tied up next to
There's a lot. Yeah, the name.
all the characters.
Yeah.
But the captain is tied up next to one of the other guys. The suspicion is that the other guy is the thing.
Right.
And so the captain is freaking out because he's tied up next to something that, like, if it opens, will just eat his head off.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're in a position where, like, every action you make is under extreme scrutiny by everyone else because, like,
Yes.
it's like you're behaving as like a double self because, like,
You do anything remotely suspicious,
Yeah.
you're ousted.
But then if you're too calm,
Yeah.
then you look suspicious.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
So this happens for the entirety of the film. That we tick off one person at a time. We get probably the best part of the movie, which is the end. Like after
They blow up everything.
Yeah,
Walter Brimley making a diabetes ship.
Yeah, making a runaway ship. You figure there's at least a dozen guys to begin with.
Yes.
By the end,
It's
2.
Mac and Childs. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Is Childs the thing?
I don't think there's any way of knowing.
Yes. Because they make it purposefully ambiguous, which I love.
Yeah.
And guess who hated that? Everyone else.
Yeah.
Now, I personally think that he's not, because they made the comment, I don't know who it was, it may have been Mac. There's always ripped clothes.
Yeah.
When it comes to the thing changing or whatever. And Childs doesn't have any ripped clothes.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, I don't know if that's enough to not damn him, but it's that thing you just don't know.
Exactly. Because if you take the opposite of having ripped clothes is enough to say that the person is, McCready had the ripped shirt.
Yeah.
It was done intentionally, but just the end of just like Kurt Russell and Keith David just looking at each other and
passing a bottle
of
good.
Like, shitty whiskey to each other, and the bass is blowing up behind them.
They're like, let's just wait and see what happens.
Because they know that they're gonna, they're dead.
Yeah.
There are no radios. Who knows how far the closest base is?
Rescue isn't coming.
There's no one. No one would be sent because there's no reason for there to be a rescue team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're just there, and it's the winter.
The beginning of winter.
Yeah. At one point, I think Kurt Russell mentioned that it's negative 40 degrees at night. Someone said that.
Someone even said negative 100.
Maybe it was negative. Yeah, there you go.
It's cold.
It's cold. It's really cold. And it's cold enough to where 2 people who don't have any headgear, they're probably not going to live to see the sunrise. It's way too cold. And so, they're just sitting there and I guess we'll just see what happens. That's such a great way of ending it. And also,
even when I first saw it, I loved it.
That's exactly that's the uncertainty. That's
the Cold War.
That's not just that, but that's the thing that Jimmy Carter was talking about.
Yeah.
No one knows what's going on. No one knows what's going to happen to them. It's just, you're just there. It's not any surprise why, with this sentiment, people would rather watch E.T.
Yes, because it came out close to the same time.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Would the film have been successful if E.T. at that point, the biggest film ever, before another Spielberg project came out?
Yeah.
Would it have been that successful, or people would still be like, I don't like the nihilism in this film?
Because you figure Kurt Russell is a big enough name.
Yeah, he did a bunch of Disney stuff.
Yeah.
He's known.
Obviously, Disney didn't help. I mean, nothing that would have been released alongside E.T. would have done well.
On one hand, you have a really optimistic view on extraterrestrials, and the other, you have the worst it could possibly ever be.
Yeah. No, it wasn't, maybe if it had come out a year prior, who
maybe.
knows? We can't speculate. We're not sorcerers. The sad thing is that it not only didn't do as well as it should have, but because of how poorly it did, it kind of derailed John Carpenter's career. He never got as big of a chance after this.
No.
not the same way.
Can't like the only like other film I can think of that's really really good is Big Trouble in Little China.
And that's really a cult hit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean they all are.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, there's nothing close to Halloween that would have
Right.
that certain appeal to even like casual either horror movie or like moviegoers in general. Like, there's nothing like this could have in a decade where like sci-fi really, really does well.
Yeah.
This could have and should have made some at least like broken even.
And but this is like right on the cusp of Star Wars ending.
Yeah.
Like sci-fi was on the brain. It just if it came out 2-3 years later, then it probably would have stood a better chance. Because if it came out anytime before, it would have to compete with Empire.
Yeah.
A year later, it would have to compete with Jedi.
Mm-hmm. The movie is something of a prophet, or I should say, it's a prophecy for a lot of the terrible and very wasteful habits that we're going to just continue to grow over the years, and that we are absolutely dealing with the consequences of now. It has to do with the gasoline.
When they're burning the bodies, they drown it in gasoline. Yeah. Like, guys, you don't have to use that much. So, it's not going to light. You're like creating a puddle, for God's sakes.
Yeah. So I don't think any of this is a coincidence that for the previous 10 years, the idea of gas consumption was a very politically charged
it still is
thing. Yeah, but like we haven't been, I mean, apart from natural disaster moments,
right?
We haven't been like rationing. Like the gas prices have been ridiculous, fine, but like we haven't been in a position where the federal government has to say you can only get X amount,
right?
Or you can only go to the gas station on this day if your license plate begins with this. Like, shit like that. But in the movie, from the very beginning, the way that people use gasoline is so crazy.
Like, guys, you got like 3 months. Calm down.
Like with the kerosene in the beginning with the helicopter, like they're just like loading up, they're just spilling it out. Like when they're burning the pile of bodies, like they have 2 of those barrels that they literally just dump over. But what's crazy is that they are in Antarctica. They can't have an Exxon truck just pull up and refuel.
Yeah, like, guys, you got 3 months of winter. You're going to need every gas you can get.
The way that they use the flamethrower. So, I get it. There's an alien, fine. But, like, they use the flamethrower a lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy that also that there is a flamethrower.
There's like 3.
Yeah.
I guess for snow shoveling.
Maybe, I guess. I mean, that's a very...
If Elon Musk had, made it to people to use for snow, then 30, 40 years ahead, then maybe they're smart.
Maybe.
It certainly probably would not cause any sort of PTSD to, at least I'm thinking probably 3 Vietnam veterans in this crew, because of course it would probably be. I think there's like deleted scenes of Mac being a chopper in Vietnam or whatever.
That makes sense that he was a helicopter pilot.
I think Windows with the guy with the vest. He has U.S. Army patch.
Yeah.
I'm saying, I think Windows is the guy with the glasses, the sunglasses.
I think so.
There's at least 3 guys who are probably served in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Toting around a flamethrower, trying to defeat an enemy they can't see.
Yeah.
Would not totally give them Vietnam flashbacks.
You're out in an environment in which you are not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it really like it stuck out on this viewing of just how much gas
I noticed
is
it too.
poured. How many times Kurt Russell just takes the helicopter to go places?
Yeah, I know.
Like there was one point I think someone told him like you don't have to go.
I think that was more of the storm than gas.
But still, it was like not only are you endangering your safety and also the only helicopter you have, but like you are potentially going to burn a lot of fuel for nothing.
Nah, I'm bringing my hat. We're going.
Oh my God, that hat, Man,
It's such a big. Why is it
that's
so
the
big?
craziest. Like, I want that hat.
No, I know. It's like
That hat's so cool.
yes, he's wearing it wrong, but it's fine.
But see,
Yeah, it's so much waste because of like the stuff that other characters like Walter Brimley destroys and things like that. The fact that Mac just says cheap bitch and destroys the computer.
Yeah.
The chess computer, like you could, yeah, sure you keep losing, but like that could have given you a bit more entertainment for the 3-8 whatever how long winter is.
It's also that's also a very telling moment in terms of Cold War politics. Like, it's just checkmate. I'm not a chess magician.
Me neither.
So I don't know how fucked that game is. If he's like, all right, this is it, I'm done.
Yeah,
but the fact is that like his handling of loss is so American. Like, it is ridiculously American.
It's slightly foreshadowing the end where they're like,
yeah,
fuck it, we'll blow it up.
Yeah. It's like, instead of trying to find a way or even accepting that you've lost and just like, I don't know, turning off the computer, he wastes his whiskey.
It's Jim Beam.
He breaks a computer.
You're not fixing that.
And like, what? Now you've got a hunk of junk.
Yeah.
Broken a glass. You've wasted a very, very rare resource on Antarctica, which is whiskey.
It's like a week out.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for the rest?
Exactly.
Like, if you're this cantankerous in the first week,
yeah,
what's the next 3 months going to be like?
Exactly. And that behavior, that attitude of, I don't need to think about then.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Exactly. And so
I can think when I've done the thing.
Yeah. We see where that line of thinking gets a lot of the people in this movie, and most of them end up dead.
Yes.
Because there's not a lot of thinking. There's a lot of feeling.
Walter Brimley does a bit of thinking.
But he thinks too much.
He thinks too much.
He looks into the face of the void.
And it stared back
and it was him. And it was just like, you got diabetes.
It'll take 27,000 hours to get it. I calculated? It's 3 years.
Really?
That's kind of a long time.
For people to just completely become thinged.
And my question is like, what are you going to do after?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't think that's the Thing's plan. Because if you remember, Walter Brimley was making a ship.
Yeah.
He doesn't want, this isn't conquering. He probably crash land here. You know what he wants to do? He wants to get out.
Just like E.T.
So it's like, if they home. Just like let it do its thing.
Yeah, they could have just put it back on a ship.
Just be gone.
Yeah.
Are the humans the bad guys?
Kind of think so. I mean,
the alien did, end up.
Honestly, the worst thing that the alien did was infect the dogs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it did infect the other humans. It does kind of murder. He kind of digested them.
They went to Antarctica. Like,
it's their fault.
Yeah. Like, you literally, like, you went to, like...
Stop messing with things you don't understand. Hey, that's a theme.
That's the theme of the entire episode.
The theme of, like, all of horror.
Yeah. Like, fuck around and find out. Like, that's really, like, that's it.
The theme of every single episode.
Everyone.
We only vaguely talked about it. Let's just go right on in, because we mentioned the thing so many times. Let's just talk about the special effects.
Rick Botton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rick Botton. I don't remember if he's done anything noteworthy before or after.
Honestly.
But god damn, he's a genius.
Like,
the amount of imagination you have to create what you see on screen is obscene. And the fact that you have to make it functional.
Yeah, like that's a big part. Is like, not only does it look cool, but it moves.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how the head on legs, I don't know how that,
I think like the part where the head grows the legs, I think that's just reverse shot. But like sense. With the wiggling tentacles, like with the dog, I don't know how they do that.
There was one point where like the tentacle was coming out of a body, but you can see that it's coming from under the floor.
Oh yeah, that's probably
But like it looked so like it was happening at a pace that was so it was like watching a snake move.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of blood, the amount like I don't think I've ever seen faces kind of like split open
No.
in this way, to where like it looks real, and also like there was one moment where like you actually see like the alien skull kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is terrifying.
Like it's bubbling. You can see it like deforming. And there's, of course, probably the most well-known scene in the film is I call it the chest burster scene.
Yeah.
That is so...
Yeah.
Because it's seamless.
It is. And speaking of the chest burster, I mean, both of these movies should write a thank you card to Alien.
Ridley Scott. More so Event Horizon than anything else.
Absolutely. And that's,
we'll talk about that.
But that's a moment in the thing where like you have to know
same isolation.
Yeah.
The isolationist that the film does. And really, Aliens should give a thank you note to Jaws, because that's essentially what Alien is. It's just Jaws in space.
Jaws, yeah. Exactly.
And Jaws can write a thank you note to Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah. And The Exorcist.
Yeah. God damn it.
And
there's our reference. There's our one Exorcist reference. You're welcome.
That's all you get. So with Alien, of having that moment of you don't know what's going to come out.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't know what's happening.
No, you just seeing John Hurt giving a goddamn Oscar-winning performance of Alien bursting out of his chest.
Like, and here in the thing, like you're like, oh God, I've seen this before. But even just the idea of knowing that something's probably going to burst out, you still don't know what it is. Like,
or maybe
because it's different
every
time.
What I actually think is like if you haven't watched the clips before on YouTube and this wasn't your first time watching, you know nothing about the thing and you watch it, I bet that throws a lot of people off guard because they're not expecting it to happen.
No.
There's a build-up with John Hurt because he's coughing. He's like, ooh, this pain, and he's writhing on the table, and then bit, and her going, oh, God.
Yeah.
But for that just them trying to resuscitate a man, then clear mouth, chomp.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It's so good.
I was chuckling to myself because I know it was coming, like, ooh, here we come.
Yeah.
And my sister was like, you're laughing at a horror film? I'm like, yeah, it's the good part. Honestly, I was laughing when they were doing the blood test, the blood test, and the alien starts reacting, and there's them, everyone's screaming, and he has the dummy on his head because he bit the guy's head. He's just writing. It's unintentionally really funny.
It's moments like that where seeing so much of the alien doesn't hurt.
No.
And I think it's because it looks different every time you see it.
Like, I can't think of a film prior to this that ever had creature design like this.
I've never.
No. Yes, since, of course.
Yeah.
But before, I can't think of anything.
Well, from the first time that you notice that the bodies are kind of deformed.
The one with like
in the pile.
Yeah.
And like the camera, it has them so shallow and focus that like you can see that they're not right.
There's like,
but you don't know how.
Super long fingers and like skinny body parts. Like what happened?
But the first face that they show, with the body that they bring back,
the two faces.
Yeah.
You're like,
oh my God. You're like, what does this?
What happened?
So where Alien benefits from having the xenomorph in the dark, this benefits from having everything out in the open.
In the bright light of the Antarctic.
Because you're like, how?
Yeah.
Like, how is it doing this? Because it's a shapeshifter. Being out in the open is more terrifying because it makes it literally invisible.
Yeah.
Having fear come out.
I'll tell you, like, the scariest part of the film to me is the sound it makes. That, like, almost invasion of the body snatcher, like, just got it, like, I can't even describe it, a howl.
Yeah.
Like, if you heard that in real life, you'd shit yourself. Yeah. That's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard.
It's bad. I mean, like, what do you do with that? Because clearly, fire,
most effective. Burn it.
There was, like, one moment where I didn't understand, where, like, I understood, but I didn't understand why the motive for something. The first time that they used the flamethrower on it, right after the dogs, they like use the fire extinguisher almost immediately. And
Yeah.
And I get it that they don't want the fire to spread, but at the same time,
Like, guys, let it burn for a bit more.
it's like they literally, it's just like, okay, it's completely covered with fire. All right, now let's,
I was also like, guys, give it
a second.
Give it like,
because that's why it comes back up, because they didn't finish the job.
they did not. Or no, I think it was either the dog or the Two-Face Man that it defrosted, was partially alive. One of those things.
They're just done. Whereas the thing is taking this alien force and showing you exactly what it is, and having your fear come from the idea that you could be. Event Horizon is saying, what if you were all along? Like, what if the thing that you were, like, the thing that you're most terrified about
Is yourself.
and
what you're capable of.
Yep.
And your dark secrets.
Yep. And so the Event Horizon is a ship that was designed by Sam Neill.
Good old Dr.
Weir.
Oh, Dr. Weir.
Dr. Weir. So the film opens in 2040. Excuse me, 2047. Because in 2040, the Event Horizon had
Launched.
In
In 2015, we had the first moon colonies.
Yeah.
We're a bit behind on that. We need to get on that.
We need the moon colonies. The special thing about the Event Horizon is that at its core, there's essentially a black hole creator that works to establish a wormhole.
Before we actually get into it proper, let's just briefly talk about the director, Paul W.S. Anderson, who you may have known before this made the Mortal Kombat film, the 90s Mortal Kombat film, which was PG-13. And he did the Resident Evil films, which they're fun. But that's the most you can say about Paul W.S. Anderson, and he knows that. He makes popcorn films. He makes fun films. He's not trying to make, art pieces like other Paul Anderson. He just wants to make something that people will enjoy and want to see. And you know what? You have to give him credit for that.
You forgot Alien versus Predator.
Yes, he also did. I like Alien versus Predator,
which is most relevant to Event Horizon because it's basically the thing.
Yes. It's set in Antarctica.
And
So Event Horizon comes out in 97. This is going to carbon date me. I'm as old as Event Horizon.
There you go. This is a pretty interesting time for not just science, but for movies, because this movie's coming out in between really what its two biggest influences are, without one of them even being out, but showing the kind of the trajectory of science and science fiction. So speaking of Sam Neill, this is just a couple of years after Jurassic Park.
Just a few, good
4 years.
4 or 5 years, yep.
Yeah. Jurassic Park was 93. And we got 97. And we have another movie about the dangers of science and what happens when you fuck around and find out. And interestingly enough, thanks to Lawrence Fishburne, see, it's like Event Horizon really is at the nexus of both of these movies. Because 2 years after Event Horizon, we get The Matrix.
I know.
And we get another movie where Lawrence Fishburne is the captain of a ship with the bridge looking pretty similar to
the Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, it's not identical, but it still has a very similar feel, and it's amazing how much younger Lawrence Fishburne looks with hair.
Yes, I noticed that too.
He looks a lot like I was telling Logan, my friend, last night while we were watching. I was like, he looks closer to Apocalypse Now than he does to The Matrix.
That's like,
and
Apocalypse Now came out what, in
79?
Yeah,
so
that's a long time.
So you've got 18 years versus 2 years, and honestly, he looks a hell of a lot younger in Event Horizon. And so all three of these movies are showing what happens when technology gets out of hand.
Yes.
Which is very important because in the 90s, obviously, the internet is becoming more and more a thing.
We just cloned a sheep in 91, 92?
I think a little bit later. Dolly?
Yeah.
I think Dolly was right before the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that late?
Because I remember Dolly being a thing.
Oh, okay.
Since we're talking about a space movie, the really cool things that are happening in space are making the movie even more not just plausible, but it makes even more sense of like why someone would have the idea to do a movie like Event Horizon when what's actually happening in space is happening. So the first thing, most important thing, really, is that in 1990, we launched the Hubble telescope. And this is the first time in space exploration that we have launched something that doesn't exist for the sake of collecting or visiting. It's just there.
To look at stuff.
It's
Which
just
you
there
could
to take.
argue it's collecting data because of that.
Well, yeah, it's collecting data, but it's not collecting like samples.
Right.
It's not like it doesn't have to go anywhere. It's going to go as far as it can, and it's going to send us pictures as much as it can.
Yep.
Even to this day, like I still look at Hubble photographs for how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, ever since we first saw what the planet looked like from space, and it's like, wow, this really puts things into perspective. These images from the Hubble telescope of like, now we're looking at parts of the cosmos that we could not possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And so now the imagination is like going crazy. A couple of years later, right before Clinton was elected, so HW is still president.
Yep.
Him and the president of Russia.
Yeah.
Because it's done now.
Yeah. I might as well point out, this is the farthest we've gone for the show, 97.
Yeah. And so
No more Cold War.
So now we actually get this agreement between the two countries in which the Russian space station Mir, now they're going to start allowing U.S. astronauts on board, which is great because we still don't have one.
Yeah.
Which will change. And then probably, honestly, the coolest thing on this list, because like I remember it very distinctly happening, and like I have stamps from it. It was just such a cool moment when the Pathfinder landed on Mars in 97, the same year as Event Horizon, and let out Sojourner to then spend weeks just sending like over 500 photographs of Mars for the first time. Like, I know the idea of like stepping on the moon, like being like having a person on the moon. Obviously, like that's like insane.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine being
did
alive
that
to
in
see
69
that. Yeah.
Of all times.
Being alive and seeing a little robot on Mars, that was cool. Like that was really cool because it's like, you know, at the time this is happening, nobody's thinking about going to Mars.
No one's really thinking about going to space because of Challenger disaster.
Yeah.
Which Event Horizon claims that the Event Horizon disappearance is the worst thing to happen in space. Like, did you remember the Challenger disaster?
Well, the Challenger never got to space.
Yeah, but that it doesn't. It counts. It counts.
I don't think NASA counts it like that. Yeah, because it never even left the atmosphere.
Yeah. Which is interesting that such a lot of space stuff was happening in this around this time. Was that the Challenger disaster happened, and people were like, maybe we shouldn't go to space. And it's interesting that I think Star Trek 4, The Journey Home, or The Voyage Home, kind of like renewed interest because it happened like around the same time that it came out, and it was like, oh, it's space fun because it was a fun movie.
Thankfully, if the Challenger happening prevented for a few years any manned missions, thankfully it didn't stop NASA from sending out like telescopes and robots.
Yep.
Probably because of NASA's budget not being great.
Why would you not just give NASA all the money?
Because, I mean, since the 60s, like people just don't think that it's necessary.
We're losing resources by like the minute. Of course it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like,
you know, not everyone's gonna.
Fine, we'll all just die on a big spinning rock. It's fine.
Exactly. So the same year that the Sojourner is like doing its thing, it's just boogieing on Mars for a few weeks. We end up pairing with Italy to launch another telescope.
Oh, cool.
Or telescope to launch another satellite called the Cassini. And this one did have a specific purpose, whereas the Hubble's just like out there.
Right.
Cassini was just meant to go to Saturn and just take a whole bunch of pictures.
That would probably take a while.
Yeah, it did. It did 7 years. It took 7 years for Cassini to get there. And the last space event for the day, The year after Event Horizon, we launch as a global community the International Space Station.
Yay!
And
They would blow it up and a few years later with Armageddon.
Yep. That's important because the idea of an International Space Station is pretty much a given by the time that Event Horizon is taking place. Like that idea of having a structure in space that large.
People just live in.
Yeah. So Event Horizon.
Let's talk about the movie proper this time.
Yeah. It's a rescue mission, right?
Yeah.
Because
the Event Horizon, it was gone for 7 years and they just popped out and people are like, we need to investigate that. Where'd it go?
And it popped out because there was suddenly a emergency signal.
Yes, the most terrifying emergency signal since we are the Borg.
Probably because it's in Latin and
there's a bunch of like screaming
Yeah.
and like pain. Like what the fuck is happening?
Thank God that Jason Isaacs is there.
Yeah, I did because we got Sam Neill, Jason Isaacs, Lawrence Fishburne. We have Sean Pertwee, who is the son of British actor John Pertwee, who played the third Doctor in Doctor Who from 1970 to 74, 75. And he looks just like his dad, but a bit gruffer.
You got Kathleen Quinlan.
Mm-hmm.
You got a bunch of other
people. We're sorry that we don't know you.
I mean, really, Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill are the only two that matter.
Yep.
The Event Horizon is important because of that mechanism, because of that device that transports you. And Sam Neill keeps seeing things. And Dr. Weir keeps having this recurring vision, memory, hallucination, depending on the moment, depends on what you call it.
Yeah.
And it's of his
wifey
killing herself.
Or just not having eyes.
Yeah.
Both,
yeah. With her, we get the motif of not having eyes, which is not only the legacy of the movie, but really it's the most important thing about it.
Yeah.
Because the gateway that this machine brings us to is to a place that's so horrific that you don't want eyes. You don't want to witness what you're seeing. And it's the unimaginable.
It's hell, but worse. And
yeah.
I couldn't imagine anything being worse than hell, but apparently whatever dimension that the event
of pure chaos.
Yes.
With the way that Dr. Weir describes it to the crew in the beginning, it's a transportation device. It's just meant to bring you to another specific point.
To puncture a little hole in space-time.
Yeah.
To bend two locations to one where they just go through.
Yeah. To just, to
easy,
serve
simple.
As, to serve as a wormhole.
Yeah.
And the problem is that where it goes is actually not where it's supposed to.
No, it's not going in this universe. It's going somewhere else.
It brings you to another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And they call it hell because there's nothing else to call it.
And even hell isn't describing it properly, which is terrifying.
Yeah. While they're on board the ship, people start seeing the thing that they're most terrified about.
Yeah.
For Lawrence Fishburne, he starts seeing a friend of his that he served with in the military that he had to leave behind.
In another spaceship.
Yeah.
Yep. He burned.
And so he had to watch him or listen to him burn alive. One of the crew, she keeps imagining her son, who has some kind of sickness that has paralyzed him.
I don't know if they were hinting at that, because you can see when she was hallucinating the wounds on his leg.
Yeah,
I don't know if something that she may have accidentally caused or what. Because
something.
Yeah,
his health is clearly a thing that she's not. So she keeps seeing that. And Sam Neill, of course, keeps seeing his dead wife.
Yep.
And we see on the ship that there's blood.
There's a frozen, lacerated up, floating body.
Yeah.
There's just viscera on the walls full of meat and mush and
it is literally
muscle.
Dead Space.
Yeah.
It is Dead Space, the movie.
Yes, you can see watching this film how much the video game series Dead Space
really
just took it
everything down to the gravity boots.
The gravity boots and just this object because it was the beacon
Yeah.
being like this focal point of this energy, this entity, this whatever turning people into the necromorphs.
Yeah.
And then you have the core that's possessing the ship. It has released something.
Yeah. Somehow it activated and it let something in.
Yeah. When the original crew was
Yeah.
in. And I have to ask, Sammy Neal, why you make it look like that?
Man, it looks cool as shit.
Why you make it look
It's
like
got those
that?
spikes on it.
Yeah, I can only just because looking at the thing, the core, it's like these gyrating like archaic looking rings and
It's
stuff.
got 3 of them.
And like this like orbit, and it's surrounded by like spikes. I'm like, did Clive Barker design this?
It honestly, it looks.
Because I
It's
just
got that feel to
the
it.
feel of like this demon ship.
Yeah.
And like this almost Lovecraftian feel of it. It's like it's as if Clive Barker made a movie, a space horror.
Yeah, it's that very weird intersection of
Gothic
space and hell.
Yeah. It's like hell. It's like if I know there's a film where Hellraiser Pinhead goes to space.
Yeah.
But this is more like what if Hellraiser was in space?
Yeah, it's just really, it's got such a distinct look to it.
Yes.
I mean, even after having not seen it for so long, like I can still recall the sound of those rings turning, of the look.
Just why
of
you
that.
Sam, why you make it look
Hey,
like that?
It's, you know. So whereas with The Thing, we have a group of guys who are at least close-knit enough to feel comfortable around each other.
Maybe they've been there before.
Yeah. With Event Horizon, we have a crew who is very comfortable, but Dr. Weir is not part of that crew.
Yes. Let's get it right off the bat. The crew is the crew from Alien.
Yeah.
Their ship, the Lewis and Clark,
is basically the Nostromo.
yes. The dining room is.
Oh my God, the dining room
the
is
same.
It, like, honestly, if someone told me that was the set, that they just like took it and I'd be like, yeah,
It's
they
that
did.
white, slightly dirty.
It looks like the star from
Yes.
like the Imperial logo, or
They're only in it for like 5 minutes, but it's like you just ripped off the crew from Alien.
Yeah, they took it. You know, honestly, I mean,
You could do worse.
yeah, like they picked the best.
Yeah.
So like, there's at least that. The same progress of everyone waking up from their stasis.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
They're not in the goop like they're in Event Horizon.
But still, like them waking up of
Right.
just like the banter when they're awake. The like, yeah, it's like everyone getting together. It's very much that.
It's that, and some of the mercenaries in Alien 2 having that banter. It's you're trying. Paul W.S. Anderson. I know Alien's cool. You're doing your best to replicate that, but you just can't.
At least after that, it really,
Kind of becomes its own thing.
yeah. The sense of distrust, instead of being, we don't know who it is, because the crew doesn't trust Sam Neill.
Because he's the outsider and he's just like protecting the ship, defending the ship. Because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, what you saw was probably the carbon dioxide. It was probably the hull making a noise. It's whatever
Yeah.
you think it is, it's not.
And this is, I think, what makes this hell so interesting is that for one of the first, at least one of the most distinct examples that I can think of, is that it's a science fiction film where the science doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't provide any sense of closure. It doesn't save the day. It doesn't bring people closer to a sense of safety.
Right.
Because from the beginning, Dr. Weir uses scientific explanation.
And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then when shit starts happening, he starts using these examples to invalidate what they saw.
Yeah.
This is where the line adds like a certain layer of importance that for me is so cool. Is that here's a sci-fi movie where the thing that matters the most is what you're able to see.
Mm-hmm.
And the film is trying to bring you to a place where that doesn't matter. That you have Dr. Weir saying, where we're going, we won't need eyes to see. And it's like one of the basic tenets of like the scientific method, or of science in general, of just being able to observe.
Yeah, observation.
Is now being thrown out. Like, it doesn't matter. All of the crew says that they saw something and that they saw multiple things, and it doesn't matter. And so there's this very interesting play of what is actually here. That's what's horrifying, is it's not scientific. This like weird hell.
It's something beyond our comprehension of our own reality.
Exactly.
And our own minds and our own senses. Like,
yeah,
whatever this thing is can't beat it.
Yeah.
Because it's something just far greater that we could never even understand.
Yeah. You have all of the crew members who are seeing something that their mind can absolutely logically tell them is not there. For Kathleen Quinlan's character, like, she keeps seeing her child.
Yeah.
And her child's also paralyzed.
And on Earth.
Yeah, and on Earth. Like, most importantly, like, on Earth.
Like, she should know without a shadow of a doubt, my son isn't here.
He's damn sure not here and running around.
No.
Like, and like, she goes after the child, and she ends up dying. She ends up like falling down and just being killed by this thing.
Which, my question is, if the entity, whatever, wants them to go to his hell dimension, why would he kill him?
Well, I don't know.
Because you have, for the other crew, it's different, because they killed each other, because they find the recording of this weird murder, death orgy, blood orgy that is really disturbing.
Now, maybe it's just that it wants
Chaos?
Yeah. Or that it just wants its creator.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, it brings him back from space.
Yeah, they don't really explain that, but, you know, it's fine.
I think that would be enough. It's been tempting him. You know, it's been calling him back from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, the most amount of chaos that it can possibly cause is just by having him. Because then the rest of the crew dies, and then maybe he can bring the Event Horizon back to, like, unleash that hell onto...
Yes, because is the original Event Horizon team, is this the first time this dimension has ever had humans?
Possible.
Or anything like living? Because they're so vague about what this dimension is.
Yeah.
It's very much in vain of, as I keep saying, that Lovecraftian horror of like incomprehensible, let's just say what it is, horror, you know? Yeah. We can't, it's unexplainable, undescribable. So even my brain can't come up with, what is this dimension like? How does it function? How does it work? Are there people? Is it just...
Who knows?
A pocket universe? Is the entity itself the pocket universe?
The ambiguity of all of this, of even knowing, like, at the end. So, like, after, you know, Dr. Weird gets killed by being blown out. Yeah. You have three crew members, in addition to...
There's
Lawrence Fishburne.
No, he died. He blew himself up.
Yeah. No, I mean, like going into that final.
Oh, right.
Scene. Yeah, because it's just him and then Stark.
And the other guy.
Yeah, the one who like boosts his way back.
Who has a weird moment of comic relief, like, man, fuck this shit. I'm coming, motherfuckers. And it's like, where is this coming from?
He was great. I used to work with a guy who was very much like him. and it just made me happy to think of. Yeah, so like it's him and the pilot after like Lawrence Fishburne sacrifices himself, and the pilot has that vision.
Yep. Oh, and there's Baby Bear. Baby Bear's. I completely me too. Yeah. I forgot he was in the film when they recovered him, as he was exposed to the vacuum of space and survived,
and just had to just yeet himself out again.
Yeah,
because of what he saw. The vision that she has while she's in stasis thinking that she's back on the event horizon and that Sam Neill's there.
Yeah.
And then wakes up and then it just ends. And you're like, wait.
It ends with the door mysteriously closing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You're like, wait, is it still there?
Very ambiguous, much like the thing.
Yeah, no, I love that of just like not knowing at the end if anyone is safe.
So don't give too much credit to the ending because do you know about the troubled production of the film? The film, they had an original cut, 2 hours and 10 minutes, which honestly I think it needed because even how cool the film is, it's a bit sloppy in some areas. Paramount, they were rushing them because at the same time Paramount was doing this, they were still working on Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was having not a problematic production, but they were over scheduled and stuff. So they're like, we need you to, get this out. So they had this 2 hour and 10 minute cut. And apparently it was like super, super gore. I mean, you see bits of like the gory bits in like the weird sex orgy video. Yeah. But remember when Sam Neill's showing Lauren Fishburne what's happening to his crew and it's flashes of these horrible, torturous things.
Yeah.
Those apparently were supposed to be longer. So you have nearly 30, 40 minutes cut from this film. Honestly, to give me the really gory, it's rated R, just give it to me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Which unfortunately they were planning on doing like a director's cut at some time before. But the footage that was cut was either destroyed or lost. So it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then you have the ending, which is 2 endings in one. They combined because they had 2 different endings they were trying to focus on. They wanted to do. They just smashed it together and you got that.
I mean, it works.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It does the stupid dream cop-out bit, but it wasn't like the whole thing was a dream. We're not talking about Rosemary's Babies 2 here. Yeah. The sequel.
Exactly. I think it says a lot that the movie's very effective in creating most importantly, a feeling.
Just only like towards the end of the film, it kind of drops, but like for most of it, even though some bits are rushed, like Sam Neill being converted. Yeah. You're just like, no, we're home in the shadows.
Yeah.
But like for the most part,
that's another that's okay. So like I'm very thankful for whoever created the GIFs of Event Horizon because a couple of my friends and I use these GIFs like all the time. And like the one that gets used the most from this movie is Sam Neill saying, "I am home." It's so rewarding. Like that's really, I don't know, like this, I appreciate very much that even after doing Jurassic Park and having, at that point being in the biggest movie ever made, that like Sam Neill was not afraid to do roles where he is the actual villain. Mm-hmm. Like where he is covered in makeup, where he's scarred and like it looks like he's been sleeping in barbed wire, like and so like I love like how sinister he is.
He's not afraid to be kind of goofy,
and at the same in the same movie where he's explaining wormholes to a bunch of jabronis, like he's doing that, but then at the end he's like trying to introduce a hell dimension to ours. Like I like that, and I like having Lawrence Fishburne as kind of like the straight man to him. Mm-hmm. Definitely like one of the best like moments of Lawrence Fishburne's career in the 90s is when he's describing the thing that haunts him.
Yeah, that's a pretty good scene.
Like
out of nowhere, here's a dramatic monologue.
Yeah, here's his fucking Jaws moment. And then he's just like, I never told anyone that. Yeah. Like no one should know that. But the ship knows this. Yes. How is that it's not only a great moment for Fishburne as an actor, but like it's a great moment for the movie. Mm-hmm. Because like it just shows you how invasive the Event Horizon is, or like whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. That's very, for me, that's very powerful. And like all of this, I think, interestingly enough, something that doesn't get talked about enough is how fear is depicted, or like something that I think should be like that everyone should talk about is like how do you depict being afraid?
Yeah.
And I think
because it's kind of different for everyone, every person.
And I think with the Thing having this very distinctly American sense of how are we afraid?
Yeah.
With Event Horizon, it's an international cast.
Yeah.
And everyone between gender and race, like it's mixed, like internationally it's mixed. Like,
I mean, mixed where one half's American, the other's English and New Zealand.
But even still, it's like, it's not as uniform as the Thing. And so
not
like,
just a bunch of white men who are over 30.
Yeah. And then Keith David.
Keith David.
Yeah. It's closer to like with Alien or with a lot of other space crews that are typically pretty diverse.
Well, it's because you have Star Trek to thank for that.
Yeah. So like we have this image of like, oh, there's a crew in space. It should be all over the place.
Yeah.
It should be all over the board. The way that we see different characters exhibiting their fears, I think with Event Horizon, it's very real. Like it's very subtle of the one hardo with the tattoos who realizes that Sam Neill just put a bomb on the ship.
Yep, Sean Pertwee.
Yeah, thank you. He hasn't been afraid like at any point in this movie, and the moment that he realizes that he's found the bomb,
And it's 5 seconds before going off.
like he just like accepts
Yeah.
that he's about to blow up, and it's like that's great. He doesn't say something like "oh fuck it" or like some like hardo shit.
I was almost expecting it.
Yeah. But he just falls into himself, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I appreciate that. And I think another one of the things that I appreciate the most about Event Horizon is that it is so explicitly dealing with what we repress. That it's like all of the things, like the things that you're most terrified of, the things that you don't want to deal with.
The things that you pushed in the back of your mind,
Yeah.
and you try not to think about.
Yeah. Or the thing that you can't stop thinking about, but that you can't deal with. So like with Sam Neill, I'm sure like his way, like in completely different ways, but at the same time, it's traumatic for the same reason. With Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill, both of them felt that they could have saved the person that they lost, and it haunts them. That being explored in a movie where these hell demons, this hell dimension is being unleashed, I think it is very interesting. And in addition to the obvious connection of the obvious theme for both of these of just this is what happens when you push too far. Like, yes, science and technology don't have boundaries, but eventually you're going to bump up against something that's not going to be pretty.
Yeah,
and you're going to have to deal
pushing, and at some point it's going to push back.
Yeah, I mean, this is especially Event Horizon is a part of a tradition that goes back to Greek mythology and the Bible.
It's like the oldest morals you could possibly have in a film.
Exactly. It's got Milton, it's got Paradise Lost in there, and obviously Frankenstein is the big one. Like, it is Frankenstein. And all of this is just showing like this is what happens. Instead of dealing with the very human way of dealing with something, we're dealing with the humanity of something, of accepting it or of working through it. Instead, you build this, like there's part of me that thinks that Sam Neill built this in order to fix what happened, but you can't.
Right.
And because you try.
Maybe it's him building it is because it was that thing of he was always absorbed in his work or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it was what he was working on that caused his wife.
Yeah. And if the event horizon goes to waste, then it means that the neglect that his wife felt that contributed to her death
That means
doesn't mean anything.
No, it would mean he would have to actually face it.
Yeah. I think for something that probably gets lumped in with things that suck.
Well, just like The Thing, it has a bit of a cult following.
Yeah.
A lot of fans of the movie kind of make it an unofficial prequel to Warhammer 40K, because apparently the ideas of like light speed travel and how it can affect you or make you crazy or whatever, I think some elements of that are like explored in Warhammer. I don't know if the writer of the film expressly said he was influenced by it or he understands the influence that it may have had. But yeah, it's like The Thing. Both films didn't do well when it came out, but it's developed a
They
cult
deserve
following.
it. They absolutely deserve it. I mean, honestly, even if the legacy of Event Horizon is that it just spawned a whole bunch of like there are moments where it looks like Doom.
Yes. But Doom came out before.
No, but I'm saying like, you know, it like pushed
It pushed
more of the space
horror film, because there's a film I'm trying to think of. It has Dennis Quaid in it. I can't remember what the film is called, but it's about like this ship, and it has these like monster mutants on it, and it turns out that the spoilers. I'm sorry, that the monster mutants are the people on board the ship who were originally there, and like their descendants, and it has something to do with it being, I guess, like an event horizon, it being like close to a black hole, and time like
I haven't seen that.
slowing down at the end of the ship.
Yeah.
Where again, compared to the front of the ship, where it's like in the front of the ship it's been like 3 days, but in the back of the ship it's been like
A long
thousands of years.
Yeah.
I think they did a Doctor Who episode on that, and that same idea. But it's spawned like that type of like, oh, we messed with science in a spaceship, and now this has happened.
I mean, just a couple of years after, John Carpenter does The Ghosts of Mars.
Yes, which I've heard nothing but bad things about.
It's like watching Doom. It's like the best Doom movie there will ever be. But it's just like the same thing of like, okay, you're on Mars, and we've uncovered these like vampire demon things.
He probably was like very much inspired by Doom, because if you didn't know, John Carpenter, he loves him some video games.
Yeah.
He loves him some video games.
Yeah, it does. But like it's the influence, I think, is definitely, people can't deny the
Dead Space.
Yeah.
No.
Just so many. I mean, the number of like space survival games that there are. There are ones that go in a direction that's closer to Alien, and then there are some that go in a direction closer to like Event Horizon. And I think, I mean, obviously, as someone who loves games like this, like both are necessary.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that Dead Space is the only game that I've played where like I've jumped like numerous times.
Yep. I guess it's somewhat tying into Paul W. S. Anderson's other films. Some of the Resident Evil games have made me jump.
There you go. I'm thankful. I'm very thankful for both of these. With Event Horizon and especially with The Thing, it's just really interesting to see the depiction of this crisis of confidence as a public.
Yeah.
To be on screen. I mean, Event Horizon, obviously The Matrix does it a hell of a lot more explicitly, but just like the fear of Y2K.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, we've gotten this far. What's going to happen next? Like, is our technology just going to destroy us?
I just remembered that another space survival film, I think, came out either a year before Event Horizon or a year after Event Horizon. I don't remember the exact date, but it's Star Trek First Contact, which is it's the Enterprise being overrun by the Borg.
I did not see that one. I've honestly, the only Star Trek movies I've seen have been the ones that have been the first one that J.J. Abrams did.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's
not those.
Yeah, I've only seen that one.
Damn it.
Yeah, not a Trekkie, but yeah, nobody's perfect.
I guess not.
So
you should watch the other ones.
Yeah, eventually. I tried watching the first one, and then I was in a movie theater and the fire alarm went on.
Oh no.
So I had to get out. So that ruined seeing Star Trek the movie.
The motion picture?
Yeah, the motion picture, thank you. Yeah, but it was fun. What I saw was fun. So that's all we have for this week's episode of Visceral Reactions. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matthew Jimenez.
Hold on, I'm looking for my quote. I had it somewhere. Okay. I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, and we find the time I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch.
And that's a wrap.
See you next time. Oh, what are we doing next week?
Next week, since we talk about it enough, Jaws.
Yes, my favorite film of all time.
And The Blob.
The Blob has a theme tune, but I don't remember what the theme tune is.
Beware of the Blob. Big creeps.
Maybe that'll be my quote for next time. Yes, very excited. This will be the first episode where I've seen both films. So we'll see you then.
We'll see you then.